Najmeh Hassanli, and I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Technology, Sydney in Australia. My background is mainly in tourism, and I've studied tourism management, but more recently in the last few years I've broadened my scope a bit, and so now I'm focusing on leisure more broadly, which also encompasses tourism. So some of my research now currently is focusing on leisure, and specifically the role of leisure for marginalized and marginalized groups, basically. Yes, so as I said, I've previously worked, or I am currently also working in the tourism field as well as leisure. So my research focus, I can say, lies in two different areas. One is in relation to the role of leisure for specifically marginalized groups, as I said. And the other one, in the context of tourism, it's about mainly social sustainability within tourism, with an emphasis on the role of small and medium-sized enterprises. As we know, tourism is predominantly the majority of businesses in tourism are small and medium-sized. So a recent project that I've done in this field is where we looked at local food. And the reason for that is because we know that consuming and basically buying and purchasing local food is a manifestation of the United Nations Sustainability Development Goal, SDG 12 basically. And so if you take that into the context of tourism, also it means that tourists, by locally buying, by purchasing local food, by consuming local food, they're contributing to a more sustainable tourism industry at the destination. And this is through many benefits that they can have, their purchase and their consumption can have on the tourism industry in the region. It could be environmental impacts and benefits, it could be social impacts, and also economic impacts for the destination. So we are aware of this. We already know that if tourists purchase local food, if they consume local food, they can have an impact on the sustainability of tourism in the region, in the destination where they're traveling. So knowing this, we were interested to see, okay, how can we impact the buying behavior of tourists? How can we encourage them to buy local food when they're traveling? And so we were interested in doing that. And for us, it was important to understand, where should we start from? Where can we influence the buying behavior of a tourist? And we thought the best place to start and do our work is at the accommodation. And there were multiple reasons for this. One of the reasons was because usually an accommodation is the first starting point of a journey. When tourists arrive at the destination, they first check in at an accommodation. So it's the first, if not one of the first touch points of the tourists with the destination. So we wanted to work with these accommodations to see how could they encourage their guests to buy local food. And the second reason was because we have previously done other research, and we knew that small accommodations, specifically in destinations and usually regional destinations, they are very inclined to give back to their community, the communities that they're embedded in. So they want to give back to their communities, and encouraging tourists to buy local food is one way by which they can contribute and give back to their community, to their local community. So that's why we looked at small accommodations, and we considered what are some of the initiatives they can put in place in order to encourage tourists or their guests to buy locally. And if you were to ask me, give me an example of these initiatives, for example, one of our initiatives was maybe if the local accommodation, or the small accommodation, can have a picnic basket, where next to the picnic basket in the accommodation, they can write nice areas within the region for picnicking, but also a list of places that the tourists or the guests can go and buy local stuff, put it in their picnic basket, and then go and end up having a picnic on a nice sunny day. So by doing this, they're actually encouraging the guest who's staying with them to go to local shops, visit them, buy local food, and then have an experience. And so this ultimately, if it were encouraged, would help with the sustainability goals of a destination. And so that's one of the projects that I've been leading and I've been involved with. said, my second area of research is leisure, and specifically leisure for marginalized groups. And the reason I'm interested in that is because, as we know, the World Leisure Organization has the Charter for Leisure, and according to that charter, leisure is the absolute right of all humans, and all human beings should have access to and have right to leisure. But we know that, unfortunately, a lot of groups in society are marginalized, and so they're excluded and they're denied full access to leisure. And one of these groups within society are refugees, basically, but they are a marginalized group, and so often their access to leisure is very restricted. And so we know that refugees, and due to the refugee crisis in the last few years, the number of refugees have grown. I believe in 2021 or 2021, we had close to 21 million refugees and people who were displaced because of war, because of political reasons, because of human rights abuses. So the number of refugees are growing, and a lot of countries are struggling to have policies in place or strategies in place to support refugees with their integration to the host country, but also with the host community population to welcome and integrate with the refugees as well. It's a two-way relationship. It's not, I believe it's wrong to expect only refugees to integrate in the community. It's a two-way relationship, and there's a lot that the local community needs to do as well. And we found that leisure is one of those, because through leisure participation, not only we're helping refugees to integrate into the society, we're actually helping with the acceptance of the host community of these refugees as well. And so there's studies done in this area that look at the benefits of leisure participation for refugees. And these benefits are multifaceted, but usually they fall into three different groups. It's either for cohesion, so community cohesion, that's one benefit. Well-being is another major benefit, and also social capital. So there's three broad groups of benefits that leisure participation can have for refugees. At the same time, we know that there's barriers to participation in leisure for refugees, and these barriers, again, there's lots of barriers in place, some of which are in relation to refugees, so barriers that refugees face in taking part in leisure, but also barriers that service providers and leisure providers face in providing leisure services to refugees. So there's barriers on both sides, demand and supply. And so in our research, more recent research, we were interested to look at from supply side. What were some of the issues and challenges that I keep saying service providers, but leisure providers had specifically when providing leisure programs to refugees? How could we address those? What were some of these practical issues and challenges? And how could industry and academia come together, work together in order to address some of these practical challenges that we face in providing leisure programs to refugees? I study tourism. I do research in tourism and leisure, so obviously what it means that it is in my personal life, I am also interested in doing fun stuff. So I love traveling and I try to travel where I can and when I can. And usually the destination is not the main goal. I love the journey as well. So we do a lot of road trips with my husband, because it's not just getting to the destination that is important for us. It's also how we get there, and along the way the journey is also very fulfilling. So we do a lot of road trips. So that's one thing I do in my free time. I also love hiking and camping. So I do a lot of camping back in Australia where I'm from. So that's another thing I do a lot.